Hey, Brown Beauties. Welcome to Well Honestly, the podcast, sponsored by Brown Women Wellness. I'm Andretta, a functional nutrition wellness coach.
And I'm Akila. We are your mother-daughter hosts, bringing two different generations together weekly to educate you on all things related to health, nutrition, financial, and mental wellness during these changing times.
Once we know what choices we have, we can do better because we know the struggle to stay healthy is real.
We invite you to come as you are, but leave inspired to become your best healthy self. So let's get started.
Hey.
We back.
We're back for another episode of Well Honestly, where we meet you where you are on your wellness journey with topics that you can relate to.
All right, so let's get straight into it.
All
This
right.
week's episode, all about the state of Black people's mental health.
This is what you've been aiming for, Keela.
Well, I mean, I think we need to talk more about mental health within our community. And we're going to keep it very general this week, just kind of talking about it in general. But we will go into specifics in later episodes. But I do want to talk more about this. It's very important to me because it's a lot going on. And I think that we have a tendency as Black people, we don't have outlets. We don't have ways in which we feel like we can express and communicate our feelings and emotions without bottling it up. And then that becomes a bigger issue. So I want to create a safe space where, you know, we can kind of flush out some things, you know, in this space to give room for
when I was doing
vulnerability.
when I was doing my research, one of the things that struck me was one of the reasons we're like that is because it stems from our very roots. Okay. I mean, from the very, very beginning, when we first came over here as slaves, how we were treated, you know, we were raised to be tough, not talk about mental health. You know, we were one of those, you know, Black people as a whole, we deal with stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We're just going to do it. Okay. But now what's happening is, and the pandemic had a lot to do with this, it brought out a lot of bottled up emotions that were just bottled up inside of us. And, you know, in the world, you know, while the world was going through the pandemic, we were having to deal with not just the pandemic, but also, as you already know, we were dealing with protests against police brutality.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, and 13.4% of the U.S. population identify as Black, and 16% reported having a mental illness in the past year. That's huge. That is over 7 million people.
Mm-hmm.
So we are definitely this is the epidemic portion right now.
Yeah, I think that it's also important to do this now because we are pretty much post-pandemic. And I think there's a lot of shifts that are happening that a lot of us, we either saw coming or weren't prepared for it. We took a blind eye to it. And we're just now being confronted with the fact that we have to address where our mental state is post-COVID. Also, in this world right now. I mean, if you think about what just happened in Buffalo.
Oh my goodness.
You know?
And what also happened
with the kids over there in Texas.
Yeah, we felt that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we feel that because, you know, see, our attitude, our cultural belief, you know, we're going to pray stuff away. You know, we feel like, you know, we were raised to pray it away.
Yeah.
You know, we say things like our God is able, which he is, you know, but we are strong. Therefore we don't get depressed. It's not our portion. You know, let's pray it away. These are all misleading beliefs.
Yeah.
You know,
it creates, you know, unnecessary barriers and stigmas in regards to mental illness and how to treat it within the Black community, because the first thing we want to do is run to religion or run to God. And the thing is, absolutely, if you are a believer, that goes without question, without saying. But the problem is,
you gotta. What did he say?
Faith without works is dead. You have to have action behind all of that, right? So it's not enough for you to sit there and worry yourself half to death talking about God is able, but you're not doing anything to combat what's literally happening in real time. God is able if you allow him to be able in whatever it is you are doing to work with him. So, you know, I think we're doing a good job lately of like destigmatizing therapy, destigmatizing seeking help and all that good stuff, but it's still not enough. And so my whole thing is I want everybody to understand that it is okay to not be okay. I think we've heard that quite a bit, but sometimes we'll hear that, and then when it comes to us, we'll say, "Well, that's for everybody else." Like, I'm good. Like, if they don't want to be okay. It's almost like you attribute weakness to that, and sometimes being weak isn't a bad
Well,
thing.
here's the other thing too. I don't know if you remember this, but they took all the mental health facilities away. I
That's
remember
been
it's
decades.
been decades, but there was a time when you had a place to go to, and nowadays you send you to the hospital if you're in mental health. So
W-
there's no way
w-
to, the outlets were taken away, and that was a mistake.
Yeah, and a lot of times people think that if you have a mental illness, that it's a stigma of like something's wrong with you, or you're less than,
Yeah,
or
it's a lot of negative
and then
attitudes.
and let me tell you something else about mental health, right? Mental health has become popular, but mental health has always been a thing. People just did not put labels on it. People didn't know how to express what it was. But if you have a brain, a working brain, if you're alive, you're gonna have mental health.
Well, now when I was coming up, I will tell you this: there was a shame about having mental
Of
illness.
course, because you were deemed slow,
Yes,
or
yeah. Well,
that
remember those
special boy
jokes?
around.
Those
Yeah,
jokes
all of
about
that.
being on the short bus and all that
But
kind of stuff.
those are but see, that is the problem. That is the problem right there, because we think that we're supposed to be above certain things, but if you are a human being, you will experience all types of different mental shifts. It doesn't, there's so many different levels to this thing. No longer are you just deemed quote unquote slow, because, and that terming is derogatory. Like, we have to normalize that our brains are sensitive, and the brain can be studied, and the brain can be understood. It is almost a very finite thing,
Well,
right?
yeah,
So that's why
yeah.
they have these brain scientists, and they have all these different people who are coming up with all these different studies. And all the studies almost have like the same kind of line of thinking and thought pattern, because the brain can be studied. So if the brain can be studied, and the brain is very vast in its studies, what makes you think that you're just gonna walk around here and everything's gonna roll off your back? You know what I mean? The brain is big, honey. Trauma can shift your thinking. Trauma can shift your being. This is why we always talk about the anti, or the slave post slavery diagnoses that they come out with. I don't know the names of them right away, but there's a post slavery diagnosis that they pretty much put on all African Americans, where we deal with almost a level of PTSD. Even though that was a long time ago, the effects are trickled down. So you can't not factor that into your mental health.
Yeah. Well, and another thing we have a tendency to do, we run black communities as a whole. We run to the church, the mosque, over or any whatever our faith institution is, because it plays a central role in the meeting place and the source of strength. So
But them people ain't qualified. Your
yeah,
pastor's not qualified
but
to help you in your
that's
brain.
very controversial because you'd be surprised how many people run to their pastor.
But again, your pastor is not qualified to diagnose or to treat a mental shift, illness, whatever you want to call it.
So what you're saying is, and I agree, is that you should seek help from a mental health professional, which is
S-
becoming very popular right now.
Listen,
Because
people,
right now you can do it online,
you can do it
right?
anywhere,
Yeah.
and it doesn't even
You
have to.
don't you don't have to lay on the couch anymore.
No, but it's so. I just want everybody to wake up to the fact that you need somebody to talk to process what it is that you have been experiencing and going through. Your pastor has the same type of issues that you probably do, and you don't even know it. So how can they help you? But if
Yeah.
there is somebody saying like there is a disconnect here, and we're going to figure out how we can better this through these type of practices, when you want what's going to work and combine it with prayer, meditation, and all the rest of this type of stuff that people do. Like, you cannot put a band-aid on this thing. You have to attack it from different angles. And just running to prayer and to your pastor ain't gonna cut it. We've seen it. It does not work all the way. And it's time to add some more to this pot of life that we're dealing with. So yeah.
Well, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. I mean, there are other ways to take care of yourself mentally. We do need outlets and things like that, so that we can have a way to express ourselves, because you got to think about it. A lot of us, especially people in corporate America, I remember when I was in corporate America, I would never forget this. I'd had to drive through a gate to get into my company, and I would be listening to all of my music loud that I like, and I would be like, "Yeah, baby." And then when I drive up to the gate to get in, I had to turn and had to put on my corporate game face to deal with my 9 to 5,
Mhm.
and then I would leave there, then have to go back and try to be myself,
It's called code switching.
Is that what it's
They've
called? They gave
created
it
a
a
name
name
for
for it?
that,
Well,
yeah.
yeah, and that was stressful because
Mhm.
you're one way for real, but then you're another way when you had to go in and deal with 9 to 5 because we have to put on a different face, to try to climb that corporate ladder.
Yeah.
So that right there
It
starts you.
creates a duality in your brain. It's like, well,
Yeah,
shoot,
yeah,
who am I? What am I trying to be? And you trying to fit into other people's roles without being your full self. Over time, over years, that will wear you down.
yeah,
And it's little stuff like that.
yeah.
That over time, people had to get sat down for almost 2 years. It made you started to think. You started to see things.
Yeah.
Things started shifting. If you wanted to process that, it would be hard. Most people, it's hard to just look things in the face of what you need to change or what's been, plaguing you, and you have nowhere else to go. You don't have work. You don't have other type of social outlets, which is why during the pandemic, alcohol sales went through the roof because you're gonna cope. What we
Yeah,
gonna do? We gonna cope,
yeah,
child.
yeah,
If I'm having a day and I'm having a month, and I don't even know what's going on, I'm gonna eat and drink my life away. You know what I mean? And listen, everybody has done it in some capacity, right? But
yeah.
at some point, though, you have to look at yourself and say, all right, this may not all the way be working for me. So what can I do? Now, I do want to address this. When it comes to actually seeking out any type of help or any kind of assistance when it comes to your mental health, there are a lot of barriers to entry when it comes to getting professional help, especially for those who are living below the poverty line, those who don't make a lot of money, those who don't have a lot of access due to low funds and things of that nature. What I do like about what's happening in the world, one of the good things is that accessibility is becoming more affordable, damn near free for a lot of people. But if you don't know where to go to start, one of the best ways to do is go to your primary care physician. If you have a doctor, or even if you don't have a doctor, if you're having a moment, you can either call hotlines, you can go to urgent care, and you can let them know, like, hey, I need to seek professional help in terms of my mental health. And what they will do is start to guide you in the right direction. They'll probably give you can either call these numbers, you can call these facilities, you can look these people up, whatever. But that'll give you places to go to start to research how to get yourself in the door if you don't know how to do this. There's BetterHelp. BetterHelp and we're not getting paid for that. I see a lot of people advertising BetterHelp, and it actually is a real good one. BetterHelp is one of those apps where you can have a therapist on call, and you can talk to them, text them, video chat them, pretty much at your whimsy. There's different levels and plans to BetterHelp, so look through the fine print of that. But you can do all types of different things to get yourself through the door. If you have insurance, see if your insurance provider has one of those, like, you get one kind of like mental or psychologist or a therapist kind of session free. So then if you want to do that, just do one session and ask that person, that psychologist, that therapist, all the questions, and let them know, like, hey, listen, I'm not sure if I can continue this. Can you lead me into the direction of where I can get possibly very low psychotherapy help? They will point you in that direction as well. I'll tell you another one. Open Path Psychology. openpathpsychology.com. Free most of the time. And if it's not free, then you get like $40 per session, which is very reasonable. It's
It is.
$10 per session. And
Mhm.
you can find them based on the state that you live in, based on the treatment that you may need. And there's a list of them. You just go through the list, any, meeny, miny, moe it, read their profiles if you want to, because they give you extensive profiles of these people. But there are resources. And if I were you, and if you feel scared about all this and you're like, child, pick somebody that is not of your race, that is older than you, that looks like nobody would know. Because a lot of times people get scared, like, oh, what if somebody find out? Or,
Mhm.
all this other kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Then pick my therapist is an old white woman
Okay.
that I don't know from a can of paint, but understand she's been a therapist for 30, 40 years now.
Mhm.
And you would think, like, really? But it's not about, she relates in terms of how to handle what it is that I'm saying and how to process this for me. Help me to see ways that I may have not seen before. Help me to understand, where my childhood may have taken me in certain thought patterns. Like, it's all about understanding and helping you, not diagnosing you and saying,
Right.
okay, you're sick.
Because you know how what we see therapists as you go there and you do all the talking and they just sitting there making notes.
No.
That's how they portray it all on all
Oh
them
yeah,
television
for
shows.
sure, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'll tell you this. One day we'll have an episode about my therapy experience for
Mhm.
people who are still on the fence about therapy
That'd
and
be a
what
good
it
one.
would be,
That would be
because it's
good.
not as bad as you think. And honestly, it has changed my life in a way where I can actually look outside of myself
Mhm.
and not be so in myself.
All right. All
Meaning,
right.
meaning that if you feel like you don't know how to process your emotions, therapy will help you do that.
Okay. I love it. I love it. Love it. Love it.
So Open Path Psychology, BetterHelp, go to your local healthcare provider if you have one. Go to urgent care, ask them for some resources. Because while they did close some of these facilities, there is still help on a broader scale that can help you to process this thing. We went through a pandemic.
Mhm.
We went through a lot of trauma with police brutality. We went through a lot with just global situations. Baby formula is shortage right now. These killing sprees that people are on. The world is shifting and changing. Talk to somebody about how you feel about it. And not just your neighbor, your mama, your daddy, your pastor, but somebody who actually can help you process what you're feeling and what you probably experienced in your own life.
Right. I agree. But okay, that's good, Keila. You very passionate
Yeah.
and I love it.
You be walking around here ticking time bombs, and this is
uh
how you end up getting sick. This is
yeah.
how you end up.
Stressed out will
This,
make you sick.
yeah, stress can
Yeah.
kill you. This is how you also start to lash out and ruin relationships in your life.
Yeah.
This is how you end up becoming overweight because you're probably eating your stress and drinking your stress.
Yeah.
It's not worth it if you can have a better approach. Try
Yeah.
something different.
Right. I agree. All right, that sounds good. So, and then we plan to have a guest on. We're gonna try to get a guest on for our next segment. Someone that can give us some ideas on
The
how to
real, the
cope.
real, the
Yeah,
real deal. Like,
yeah,
not just our little our thoughts, but
right,
somebody who's actually working
R-
in the field.
right. We're gonna bring on someone that's
Yeah.
actually working in mental health. We're gonna be hopefully it'll be the next segment. So we
Our
will
next episode.
yeah, definitely episode. So with that, Keila, I think we're gonna take a break and come back with our you don't have to change the menu, just change the ingredient segment. How
Let's
about
do
that?
it.
All right. Brown Women Wellness mission is to empower brown women and their families through education and products to help improve their family health and wellness through a lifestyle of easy and actionable steps. I'm Andretta Robinson, functional nutrition wellness coach. In 2008, I was diagnosed with an early stage of cancer. My doctor wanted to remove my womb as a cure, but I was determined there had to be another way. After lots of research, I found a curable alternative, forcing my doctor to treat it without any surgery. And in 2018, I was visiting my aunt in Atlanta after having lost my mother to heart disease and saw her health was in distress with high blood pressure and all things related. A visit to the health food store to formulate herbal teas, which is now called Brown Women Wellness Anti-Inflammation Tea, and a diet and lifestyle change turned my aunt's health around. I knew I had found my calling. We bring you healthy lifestyle information through our Brown Women Wellness website, our Brown Women Wellness Facebook group, emails, Instagram, and other social media websites, and our Well Honestly podcast. Find us. You'll be glad you did. And we're back. So we're back with that segment. You don't have to change the menu, just change the ingredient. And today we're going to swap a breakfast item. And it's one of the most popular breakfast items out there. It's something that people grab early in the morning. We give it to our children. It's cereal. Because
Mhm.
it's so easy to pour a bowl of cereal in the morning, especially if you're on the run. Many of us grew up with it. We give it to our children, like I said, and so on and so on and so on. So let's explore why this is unhealthy, and let's give you some swap ideas. So it turns out the cereal is even worse than we thought. And why is that, Keela? Why is it worse than we thought? All right. So everybody knows how important it is to get a high quality balanced breakfast. They have drilled breakfast into us, that's a whole nother segment, but they drilled it into us. And so we feel it's very important. I mean, cereal is delicious. It's quite possibly one of the worst breakfast foods we can eat. And here's why: it's loaded with added sugar, So you get that sugar rush in the morning. And you know how you get that sugar rush and then all of a sudden you go blah, blah. And it also is a little
What do you go?
you
What do you
go
do?
blah, blah. And then it doesn't have any key nutrients in it that's important for a healthy morning meal. It has like frosted mineral wheat, for example, has 60 grams of sugar,
Oh,
50
frosted mini wheats?
mini wheats, I'm sorry. It has
Ew.
51
Those
grams of carbohydrates.
that
That's
cereal has been
crazy.
nasty
I
though.
mean, but these are cereals that people grab, Keela. You might not grab it, but people
Frosted
grab
mini
this.
wheats has always been nasty. Now you
Honey
start
nut,
talking
honey
about
nut
that used to be my
Cheerios.
jam.
Okay, again, you got 9 grams of sugar in there and 22 grams of carbohydrates. And sugar leads to things like weight gain. And we got a problem with our kids getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Also, increased risk of diabetes. It raises our blood pressure, all that stuff. So, cereal can also make you feel hungrier.
You
You
know
had,
what? That is very true.
yeah,
Back in the day, we used to tear down one bowl, we want another one, and then after 2 bowls, you still hungry. And
you
it's
want
like, why
some,
am I still
then you
hungry?
want some pastries and pancakes, and that's how you start your day. And
Yeah.
so now you've loaded yourself up. So, and it makes you crave other carbohydrates and unhealthy foods throughout the day. And so that's how your whole life is. So that's why the cereals are really just not that good.
It's just empty food.
So what can we eat instead?
So, what you can do instead of eating all those nasty things that are in cereal, but cereal is delicious. But the reason why it's delicious is because it has all that sugar, is you want to stay clear of all that and go towards something a little bit more nutrient dense with still the right amount of flavor. And what you can do is try simple granola with fruit on top.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. It's still crunchy.
Listen, it's got the right amount of crunch.
Yep.
If you add the milk that of your choice, it gives it that cereal kind of like vibe.
It does.
As a matter of fact, no one ever said that you couldn't put milk in granola.
I do
That's
it all
just
the
something that
time.
people just never did, but you actually can do
I
that.
do it all the
And it
time.
acts just like a cereal. And actually it works better because it doesn't get soggy as fast.
Right.
And then if you put the fruit on top, you're getting like that sweetness to it. Like you can put strawberries, bananas, blueberries, whatever you want.
Right.
If you wanted something even more creamy, you can try like Greek yogurt
Yeah.
with granola on top and fruit on top.
Right.
So there's very different things that you can do with that option. But if you're looking for that sweet crunch, you can put granola and milk together. If you wanted something a little bit more sweeter, add a little drizzle of honey on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
That's better than the emptiness of cereals that have no nutrient value. Honey is actually good for you. Fruit, we already know what fruit can do. And granola gives you a nice dose of fiber content that we all need to push those bowels through.
And don't be fooled because ain't no honey in honey nut. Anyway, here's another great option, oatmeal. You can always get some good old oats.
Yes, you
Yeah,
can. But
yeah.
if you're not looking to do, even instant oats can be too much for some people. This is
Yeah.
why cereal is key, because they just throw it in the bowl, put a sip milk on it, and keep it pushing. Use oatmeal. You actually have to kind of cook in some capacity in the microwave. Sometimes you ain't got time for all of that. So you just get the granola in a box, some oat milk, whatever kind of milk you do, some berries, and call it a day. Drizzle some honey on it, and boom. It actually is really, really, really good.
All right. Sounds good. All right. So we will wrap up this episode, huh?
Yes, you can find us everywhere, Brown Women Wellness related on social media, brownwomenwellness.com. Sign up for our newsletter where you will get all of the recipes that we talk about on our episodes. You'll get this granola and fruit and milk recipe on next week's email list or email that goes out. You'll also get killer behind the scenes style information that we don't share on the podcast. Also join our Facebook group at Brown Women Wellness. Yeah, man. Look us up. Hit us up.
All right. And we'll see you on our next episode.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Well Honestly, the podcast. If you want to know more about us and our products, check us out over on our website at brownwomenwellness.com. And remember, ladies, we are not doctors, and any information shared by us is not medical advice. always follow your doctor's advice.
And don't forget to rate and review our podcast and let us know what you loved about this week's episode. And please subscribe to wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Feel free to email us and let us know what you would like to hear more of from us. Don't be afraid to say hi. We'll say hi right back to you.
Don't forget to find us across all social platforms at Brown Women Wellness. As always, show notes with links to what we talked about today in this week's episode will be in the description box below. Thanks for listening.